You can scale a business to 7, 8 figures. You can build systems, you can lead teams, you can multiply profit. But if you don't have a backbone bigger than the bank account, you will lose yourself in the process. This happened to me, and I've seen this happen time and time again to successful entrepreneurs, friends of mine, clients that thankfully I've been able to engage with them before it's gone too far. I'm sick of seeing it happen, and I want to do everything I can to prevent it from happening again. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to anchor your ambition to something that actually lasts. You'll learn how to scale with clarity and conviction, how to craft a personal mission that protects your priorities, and how to avoid becoming a man who builds empires while losing himself in the process.
Men of greatness, rise and stand tall. You're answering the call.
Welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Greatness. In these videos, these audio episodes, I'm doing everything I can to equip elite, Christian, high-performing individuals with everything they need to continue to crush it with their faith, their family, their friendships, their health, their finances, and their business. That's the 5 pillars of greatness that we talk about all the time in our Men of Greatness community. What I want to do today is I want to step through this specific area. I want to talk about the real risk of scaling. Really, this idea of drift without direction. And it happens more frequently than you would like to think, maybe than you would like to admit, though you're starting to maybe even feel that right now. I want to talk about the identity trap and why profit is never enough. Revenue and accomplishment and achievement are not all that it's going to take to truly feel secure in who you are. I want to talk about the anchor and how to craft a personal mission statement. In our Men of Greatness workbook, which I will link down in the show notes in the description, you can grab a copy of your own workbook. I think it's 30 or 40 pages. It works through the acronym GREATNESS, 9 key areas to achieve greatness in your life. And in there, it talks about how to craft a personal mission statement. So if you want to go beyond this episode, you can download the link in the show notes, and you can do that for yourself. You can walk step by step through that. And then finally, I want to talk about the framework and how to align scale with legacy, because you shouldn't have to choose one over the other. Too often I hear people saying, if you go after profit, then you have to sacrifice everything else you love. Or if you want to prioritize everything you love, then you're going to have to sacrifice the business growth. And I am saying that is BS. You can do both, and you can do them well. And I'm going to close with some practical action steps that you can take. So sit tight and make sure you listen all the way to the very end, because I have a lot packed into 20 or 25 minutes that I think you are going to very highly value. Okay, so let's talk first about the real risks of scaling. And I talk about this because it's important that you try to figure out where you are at. You may be you may be crushing it. You may be killing it. You may be doing fairly well. You may be on a good trajectory in your business, but you want to prevent the catastrophe from happening in the event it could happen. It probably will happen at some point if you're not careful. Or maybe you're stuck and you're struggling and you want to figure out how to get out. And so I just want to talk about a few key areas that often happen and cause us to drift without direction. So the first one is that as we scale, as we grow, particularly our businesses, we are afforded more options. More options are available to us, which ultimately creates more distraction and more drift. This is why I've started to love hearing guys like Dan Martell, women like Cody Sanchez, both Alex and Layla Hormozy, who are people that I follow pretty consistently. I've loved hearing them talk about and really kind of poo-poo on the idea of a bunch of side hustles, because I think that you need to stay solely focused on what you are called to. You need to stay very intentionally focused on the things that God is calling you to pursue. as a husband, as a father, as an entrepreneur, as a keeper of your own health and well-being. These things are incredibly important. But as you get more successful, more things start to become accessible to you. You can invest in other opportunities. You can start to diversify the business that you're running. And it's a mistake. I've seen entrepreneurs that crush it, that get to incredible places in their business and then try to branch out because they want to get bigger, and it just screws them. And they end up out in no man's land, and they have no idea how they got there. And frankly, they really have no idea how to get back. But it was all because as they started to grow, they began to drift because too many options were available. Another risk of scaling, and really by moving off the path, is that you will get to a place where you hit the numbers that you dreamed of. You will start to really crush it. You will start to feel like, man, I've done it. I've got the business size. Maybe I hit that $1 million, that $10 million mark. I've got multiple employees that are doing work for me. I've got a good kind of tension between how often I'm in the office and out of the office. You've arrived. And yet, you still feel unfulfilled. I talked about this in last week's episode, so go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But I talk about the fact that the finish line will continue to move. The bar will continue to be raised to try and further fulfill us. There's nothing wrong with setting bigger and bigger goals. I am all for setting bigger and bigger goals to stretch yourself, to grow yourself, to challenge yourself. But if you believe that goal achievement equates to personal fulfillment, you are likely and sorely mistaken. That's not how it works. You have to find a deeper sense of fulfillment. Something else that you will often see is you will find yourself in a place where you're growing, you're building, you're hiring, you're launching more, but you can't answer why. It's just because it's like that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to scale. When you get to 100,000, then you need to go to 1 million. When you get to 1 million, then you need to get to 10 million. It's just like this narrative that has been created in culture, and it leads people to canyons of unfulfillment because they don't know why they're doing it. They're just doing it. Then they get frustrated. Then they sometimes, like I have a very close friend of mine that continued to scale for the sake of scaling. And he got to a place where he was not happy, not fulfilled, even though his business was generating good revenue and he was making good money. And in a short period of time, he scaled the business back, both in terms of revenue and clients he's serving, as well as the number of people he's employing, and he's happier than he's been in a really long time. If we're not careful, drift will come upon us without crushing us. And you may be saying to yourself, well, no, that's a good thing. Like I don't want to get crushed. I don't want to destroy myself. But when it's not a magnificent disaster, oftentimes we just let it continue to be the way it is. And this shows up, and maybe you can relate to this, but this shows up as constant busyness. You're just always busy. You're always doing something, always working on the next thing. Another way that this shows up is numbness at home. It's kind of just off. It's not terrible. It's not great. It kind of just is. One of my good friends recently said to me, he started to feel like he was living with his wife as a roommate, not an intimate relational and sexual partner. Numbness at home. It's just not it. It's just there. Another way that drift can show up without being absolutely disastrous is you just start to feel a sense of regret. Like you found yourself in a place that you're just not stoked on. It's just not doing it for you. And you look around and you think to yourself, I've done everything that the gurus say. I've accomplished everything that I've ever wanted. And I I don't feel it. I actually feel like I've made a mistake, but I don't want to admit it because everybody else says that this is what I should be pursuing. Look at scaling is not the enemy. Scaling without a rooted mission is. Let me say that again. Scaling, growing, achieving more, making more is not the enemy. Doing so without a rooted mission is, because then you will accumulate a whole bunch of stuff and have no idea why. And this really leads into this trap that I see a lot of really good dudes fall into. I see a lot of very successful entrepreneurs that fall into this identity trap. I fell into this identity trap. I have a now good friend, I talked about him last week on the podcast, that fell into this identity trap. When you don't have mission clarity, profit becomes the scoreboard. Your level of income, the type or number of cars that you drive, the places that you go on vacation. Remember, I already said, in and of themselves, none of those things are bad. But when you are using that to feel valued, to be seen as valuable, to attract others to you, you will feel empty. Maybe not right now, but eventually you will, because you are not living on mission anymore. Mission is the outworking of the identity that God gave to you. It's pursuing the purpose by which God has created you for. It could. I'm reading 1st and 2nd Samuel right now. No, I'm in 1st and 2nd Kings, sorry. And reading about Solomon and all that this guy accomplished. And for a period of time, it was actually really good. So I'll stick with this for right now. Dude had the biggest house, biggest kingdom, most wealth. I mean, he was dialed, and that was honoring to the Lord. So you can pursue that so long as that's what God is calling you to. Because if you know the story of Solomon, you know that one of the things that God gave to Solomon was greater wisdom than anybody else. And so for a while there, Solomon was using that wisdom to glorify God and to serve those that God put into his place or brought into his sphere. Solomon would eventually lose sight of the mission. And all of a sudden, all of that wealth, all of the accumulation of that stuff became very bad for Solomon. We also get trapped into this identity when we start to believe that the accumulation of all that stuff will bring us peace and will help us to forge legacy. Now, again, making a lot of money, making a good income brings you peace. When you don't have to stress about finances, which is one of the greatest stressors that most men face in this world, when you don't have to stress about that stuff, you are really peaceful. So it's wise to go out and earn a good living, to work hard, to earn as much money as you can. But when you believe that that is going to bring you the peace that you need in order to live a fulfilled and fruitful life, you are sorely mistaken. That type of peace comes from something far greater than profit alone can gain. We have to be really, really careful. But you get your identity all wrapped up in your stuff and think that that's going to make you happy. And it just, most of the men that I serve, most of the men that I encounter and want to work with, that I want to be friends with, that I want to interact with, they don't need more ambition. They need more alignment. Most of the guys that I come into contact with, they don't need to be told to work harder. They're actually oftentimes working too hard. It's not an ambition thing. It's an alignment thing. They're working hard at the wrong things that aren't truly fulfilling them. The business that you're building, the entrepreneurial journey that you are on, should be serving your mission, not creating it. You get that? Your business is a means to serve your mission. Your mission is not to build the business. It's a very big difference there that too many entrepreneurs get confused by, and they end up getting lost and caught up. And eventually that can hurt the business, but more often than not, it's going to destroy the guy. It's going to destroy their marriage. It's going to destroy their friendships. It's going to destroy them. Stressed out, not sleeping, unhealthy. I mean, it just quickly goes out of control. If your soul is not anchored, and when I say anchored, I'm talking about grounded in faith. This is the first of the GAP framework. If you are not grounded in faith, if your soul is not anchored to the anchor himself, Christ, your scale, your success, your profitability, your business will eventually sink you. If your soul isn't anchored to Christ, it will be anchored to the boat sinking to the bottom of the ocean, like the Titanic. I've been there. I don't want to go back. I've been there multiple times, as a matter of fact, because I'm an idiot at times and don't learn the first time around. This is often why I'm sharing what I am, is because I just want to help other people to not make the same mistakes that I've made. It breaks my heart to see some of the people that are closest to me, that know me well, even that know my story, that are train wrecking their life, shipwrecking their life. And I'm thinking to myself, like, haven't you heard me share? I'm not sharing this to brag about how screwed up I was, and am sometimes. I'm sharing this to help you not screw up. So this anchor, Christ, he gives us a mission. This is why it's incredibly important that we document, that we articulate a personal mission statement. My good friend, Sam, he has written some amazing books. He's a phenomenal strategist. He's actually written this incredible short paper book called The Great Commission Statement. And if he gives me permission, I'll link it in the show notes and you can go check it out. But it goes far deeper than just creating a simple mission statement. I love what Sam's done, and I need to ask him just to borrow it permanently. But in a personal mission statement, there are three things that are really important for you to consider. So again, a personal mission statement is, what do you believe God has called you to do? How has God called you to impact? It's not the means, it's the end. So if God is calling you to impact the world, you can do that hundreds of different ways. You know, God, it's rare that God calls, I don't think God called me specifically to be a performance coach to high-performing elite men. I think that God called me to help men continue to succeed without destroying their faith or their family, because that was my journey, and he's equipped me in such a way to be able to do that. It just so happens that the function of a performance coach allows me to do that. But that happens in a lot of other ways too. I just had breakfast this morning with a guy that I initially met his now fiance, soon to be wife, but they didn't know of each other at all. I met her years and years ago. We became friends. We did some CrossFit competitions together. We were in Bible study together. And then they met. We hung out, me and my wife and her boyfriend. And little by little, that relationship grew. Well, now they're getting married and we're going to be attending the wedding, which is super cool. And then he reaches out to me recently and he says, hey man, he goes, I'm at this place in my faith where I want to get baptized. I've never been baptized before. Is that something you're open to doing for me? And a lot of times people ask that of me, just like they ask me to officiate weddings because they see me as the pastor I once was. And I tell them I'm no longer a pastor because I'm not attached to a local church in that role. But I would love to baptize you. The Bible never says that only a pastor can baptize. It doesn't say that only a pastor can officiate. So I love doing those things. So he reaches out to me. I'm like, dude, I'm honored. And so we sat and had breakfast this morning. And we just talked about life and the journey of his faith. And so here I am helping a man's man lean into his faith, to grow in his career, to become a better husband. Like all of these things are now going to be wrapped up in this journey to ultimately baptize him. And then I opened up an offer that he accepted just to continue to walk this journey together as he grows in his faith. So again, my mission to help men continue to succeed in life, in business, in their relationships, personally with their own health and well-being, to help them succeed in those areas without destroying their faith or their family in the process. The means doesn't matter near as much as the mission. That's the mission that God has me on. When we define our mission statement, it clarifies what matters most. It helps us to filter decisions that we are going to be challenged to make. And it centers our identity in something deeper than performance. Those are the three greatest benefits to writing down, defining a mission statement. Cannot encourage you enough to take the time to do this. And again, if you want some more instruction there, download our Men of Greatness workbook. It's down in the show notes, down in the description. It's no charge. And I would love for you to be able to step through that for yourself. And if I get the blessing, maybe I'll include Sam's Great Commission statement too, because I think it's really dope. So 3 quick questions or simple questions that you can ask yourself if you want to define a personal mission statement and you don't want to go to the extent of downloading the workbook, which is so freaking easy, but whatever. So 3 questions that you can ask yourself that are really helpful for you to start to lay the foundation for your personal mission statement. So the first one is, who am I called to be? Words, phrases, just what are the characteristics of the man that you are called to be? Number 2 is, what am I building that outlasts me? Because a mission isn't for you, it's for those that God puts before you. So what am I building that outlasts me? And then the third question around personal mission statement is, how do my faith, my family, and my work intersect? You see, it's too often the mistake that I see Christian men make where they say there's the sacred and the secular. That's not true. It is all sacred because this is all the Lord's. We are all the Lord's, whether we are at home or at work. So we want to understand how those things intertwine so we can better line up what my mission statement is and how I can best live it out in the roles that God calls me to. Because as I'm out on mission serving God, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a business owner, I'm myself, I'm a friend, I'm a son. All these things impact my ability to fulfill that mission. So those are 3 good guiding questions that you can ask yourself as you're starting to forge that personal mission for yourself. Okay, so then let's talk about this framework. Framework that's going to help you align scale with legacy. Because again, as I started out, the whole point to what I'm talking about here is that there is a cost of scale without substance. We need to have a solid foundation grounded in faith. We need to have a lot of substance if we are going to grow. I want you to grow. I want you to succeed. I think that's what you want. So just do so with substance. Do so with some meat on that bone. So there's a framework that's really helpful to ensure that you're aligning scale with legacy. And by the way, when I talk about scaling with soul, when I talk about that deep-rooted foundation, vision will be rooted in purpose, not ego, right? I have this vision for what I want my life to look like because that will help me to achieve and accomplish the purpose by which I've created for, not just to get a big head. Scaling with soul also means that the systems that I create will protect my values, not just my time. I love when guys like Dan Martell talk about the fact that we create systems to ensure that we win back our time. He talks a lot about that. That's one of his big messages. And that's so true. What we don't want to forget, and not that Dan doesn't say this, but we don't want to forget is the number one reason that we create systems is to ensure that the guardrails are up and we never start living as the man that God has not created us to be. We always want to be that man, and we want to make sure that those values are aligned at all times, no matter where we are or who we are interacting with. And the other thing that we want to make sure is we align with scale, and we do so deeply rooted with this foundation of faith, is that we want to see people grow under our leadership, not just our revenue. We want people to grow, not just the business to grow. When I think about the one full-time employee I have, I love her deeply. She is a close friend of mine. I am super grateful for having her in my life, in my business. And as much as I want her to help contribute to the growth of our business here, as we continue to serve more and more people, scale programs, all of those things, I want her to help me do all of that. But I care far more about how she grows as a woman, how she grows as a mother, how she grows as a wife. In any way, small or large, that I can help to impact that, I care far more about that than I do growing the revenue side of my business. The people are far more important. The vendors that we work with, the subcontractors, the clients. I want all those people to grow by the influence of my business far more than I want my revenue to grow, though I want my revenue to grow. So, 3 ways that you can audit this for yourself. So when you think about, I'm on a mission, I've identified what that is. I want to continue to scale my business. So what are some ways that I can audit that to ensure that I am in line and I'm online? Okay, so identity, vision, and rhythm. 3 things that you can audit to ensure that you are staying aligned are identity, vision, and rhythm. Identity. Do I know who I am apart from what I do? 2, is what I'm building worth my life? And 3, are my actions aligned with my values? Identity, do I know who I am apart from what I do? Vision, is what I'm building worth my life? And 3, rhythm, are my actions aligned with my values? Those are 3 audit questions that you can ask yourself to ensure that you are aligned from your foundation through to your purpose. So I have an action step for you. Again, I've given you some ideas, some theories, some questions that you can ask yourself, some practical ways in which you can begin to build your personal mission statement, that you can audit your sense of alignment. But I'll have a challenge for you. And it goes back to everything that we've talked about so far, and it's this. Write the first draft of your personal mission statement. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be honest. Who are you really called to be? And what are you building that's worth the cost? And if you've already written a personal mission statement, now's a great time to whip that thing out and audit it. And ask yourself those questions. Am I doing what I'm really called to do? Am I building something that's worth more than the cost to build it? It's incredibly beneficial for you to do this. This will help you to continue to scale, to continue to grow, to continue to generate more revenue, to continue to build a bigger business if that's what God is calling you to. It will help you to do all of those things without drifting to a place of destruction. Because the problem is, as I said earlier, sometimes you're going to get so far off course before you realize that you are months, if not years, from correcting back to where you need to go. The sooner you can catch that, the better off that you are. Go download our Men of Greatness workbook. It is free. If you want a hard copy, just DM me. Comment on one of the platforms that you follow me on, and we will be more than happy to ship you a printed copy of our Men of Greatness workbook if you prefer that. It's bound, it's pretty cool, and you can use that, and you can just continue to write in that if that's what suits you best. Look, do not wait until burnout or breakdown to ask questions like this. Anchor your ambition now so that the legacy you're building doesn't come at the cost of your soul. And by the way, it won't just cost you your soul. It will cost you your business too. This is why so many successful businesses crumble, because the founder becomes out of alignment with the business that he's built. And it just becomes an absolute disaster. And as we build on this, next week, I'm going to be talking about how to create a mission that your kids will remember. This is about creating something that you can get your family in alignment with, that you can get those around you to build with you. You are far stronger when the people that love you the most are in alignment with what you do, supporting with you, or sacrificing with you. These things are so beneficial to us as we're building our businesses. So get out there and get in alignment with the business you're building, with the life that you're creating, so you can achieve the greatness that God has created you for. Like it, share it, subscribe to it. Give this to a buddy that needs to hear this message. We are all in this together. We're all trying to perform at the highest level possible, and we want to do so without destroying ourselves in the process. I wish that somebody would have shared stuff like this with me when I started my business back in 2011, when I was struggling in 2012, when I was freaking out in 2013. But I didn't have anybody around me that was pouring into me. Thankfully, I would finally find those people, and I've held on to them for dear life. And if I can in any way be of service and support to you in that same way, please feel free to let me know. Peace.